It's great to have you on the show, so thank you very much. Um, I guess I'd love to understand. I mean, I've done a little bit of research about you and the brand and those sorts of things. So I'd love you to maybe just give me a bit of a very brief intro into how this came about and how you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kevin. It is a joy to meet you and to be on here. So fell into business. I wasn't really growing up wishing I would be a businesswoman. That didn't happen. I fell into business when my husband and I decided to emigrate. So going back, I grew up in Nigeria. I was born in Scotland, but I grew up in Nigeria. My parents are Nigerian. I had the most wonderful childhood and I have the most wonderful parents. And my parents never stopped telling my brothers and I how amazing we were, how smart we were, and that we could do absolutely anything we wanted to do. And
Brilliant.
that was supposed to be a good thing. But you see, when I moved from Nigeria to the UK to study A levels, my plan was I was going to be a doctor. I used to go through my father's medical books as a child, and I was going to be a doctor. I came and I took their words saying I could be anything I wanted to do, and I was so smart. I took it literally and didn't study for A levels. I failed because I thought I was so smart. So I failed, didn't get to medical school, but I got in to study pharmacology. And in my second year, my then boyfriend and I got married. We fell in love, we got married, and we were both students. He was at university as well. And I became obsessed with doing up our apartment. We had a one-bedroom apartment off the Old Kent Road. Became obsessed with doing up our apartment. And one day I admitted to myself that I had dropped out because I was spending more time at home base and fads and B&Q than I was in my lecture halls. So I accepted I had dropped out and I wasn't bothered by that. I just felt very free and everybody thought I was great at interior design and I enjoyed it. Fast forward us having our children, we had our first three boys. And after my then youngest was born, and it was time for me to go back to work, I worked as a pharmaceutical rep with a pharmaceutical company. They wouldn't give me suitable hours. So I ended up, I remember at the same time I was reading a book. And in the book, the author had said, your gift is that thing you do so effortlessly that everyone thinks it's such a big deal except you. And I thought about it and thought, my gift, well, everyone thinks my home is beautiful. Everyone thinks,
Yeah.
that I've got this interior design skill. Maybe that's what my gift is. So I went ahead and enrolled on an interior design course and then set up a residential interior design firm. But I would only been running it for a few months when my husband came back from work one day and said, why don't we move to the United States? Because we were so in love with America. We would go there on every single summer. We would go to multiple states and we just loved it. And it made perfect sense. So I thought, yeah, let's go. So we packed our boys, we sold our home, and we emigrated to the United States.
Wow.
And in the process of our emigration, acquired this baby furniture store, which was my introduction into luxury for babies and children. So I literally, when people ask me how I get into business, I say I fell into it. It was all accidental. It was all accidental. So we had the store and everything was going perfectly well. The business was thriving. My children had settled into school.
Yeah.
And then
So
the
when
recession.
was it? When was this? How? When are we talking?
So this is 2006, 2005, 2006, 2000.
20 years ago, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Can't believe it's been that long. Feels like yesterday.
Got that.
Yeah. And then the 2008 recession hit and we lost the business. So we lost absolutely everything we ever owned and came back to England empty-handed.
Wow.
I also was pregnant with son number 4.
Yeah.
So I always refer to that season of my life as the perfect storm because it felt like everything that could go wrong was going wrong.
Did go wrong. Yeah.
It would go wrong. I'd hired the services of a web designer, and I was very involved with the website building side of things. And I'm a bit of a geek. I love tech. I'm a creative, but I also love tech.
Sure. Yeah.
I picked up a lot of, not just the terminology, but the functionality, learning what a website was and so on. And the web designer and I fell out because he presented what he called a completed website to me, but it had issues. You couldn't go from one page to the next. And it was like, just pay me my balance and then I'll fix it. I'm like, we're not doing that. You fix it and then I'll pay what's left. And it was a lot of money. So in the end, we fell out
And
acrimoniously.
was that on because back then 20 years ago you that was on a, I mean, it wouldn't be on Shopify, right?
No, Shopify wasn't born. Shopify wasn't even in its mother's womb then.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was no shop.
Not even a twinkle in his eye.
Not even a no. As a matter of fact, the founder was probably still being conceived at that time. There was no big commerce. There was no Shopify. There was no Squarespace. There was WordPress.
Yeah.
Is that your phone or mine?
No, it's not mine.
Okay. Okay. So there was WordPress and so on. So what they did was it was a custom built website, and I don't think it was a platform. It was literally HTML coding from scratch.
Old school, yeah.
Old school. But then back then you had to then purchase, I don't know how far back you remember this, but you had to purchase
We're 25 years now, so I remember.
Oh, so you're good. Okay, great. So you remember you had to get a connector that links the websites to your payment processor.
Yeah.
Then you needed a separate payment processor. Then you needed another software that took the money from the website into your bank. So there were a lot of components, and I was learning these things because a time came when I just thought, I'm just going to solve the problem myself while we were building the website. And I began doing some research and I got to know a little bit more. But then when we lost everything and there was no website and we came back to England, I didn't want to lose completely. So I decided that I was going to save my business. It was a physical location in the state of Georgia, beautiful Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose it completely. So I told the staff to let our customers know that we were moving online, but we didn't have a website. So I researched on Google how to build a website and learned everything that I could about website building, understood that there were such things as templates, that you could buy a template. So I go to the cheapest template seller on, I don't know, maybe eBay. I think it was eBay. I may have found her. Bought a template and I found where you can get this platform. There was a company called Miles e-commerce. I remember. I mean, that was another one, and just different components from different people who were selling them. And in the end, it cost me $75. And that's how I started my business. So that's how I got into it.
That's brilliant. And here you are now. We're 2025, and you must have been on an incredible journey.
Absolutely. It's been a very interesting one. I used to say that my business exists to teach me life lessons, but I don't say that anymore. I said, no, my business exists to make me rich. So, not teaching me the lessons. I'm okay. I'm okay on the lessons now.
But I guess those early setbacks, that kind of like with what you from a personal standpoint, having to come back to the UK, kind of lost everything. That's going to help you with, it's going to build resilience for sure.
100%. Yeah, it did, because, and the thing is, when you find yourself at the crossroads of life, you can either turn left or right. And turning left will be accepting that this mess that I'm in is now the definition of my life. And let me just try and get used to it and accept it. Turning right will be, this is not my life. I'm going to fight for something else. And I was so blessed to have been at a place where I was able to turn right. And I think that came from the foundation I had as a child, the fact that my parents instilled in me that I was going to be this great person and I was so smart. So there was a residual amount of confidence in me that the recession did not successfully knock out of me.
Yeah.
And that was where I was growing from. I always say that we need to reserve a small portion of our personality and our heart and our essence, so that if most of us gets damaged through trauma or whatever life experiences, you have a small piece to grow from. And I think I came up with that because when I was studying pharmacology, we used to grow cells in the lab, and we used to grow cultures. We used to grow cells in culture, and all we needed was a tiny little bit of yeast, and you'd have a whole culture.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's the same with us. Like if you can keep a tiny bit of yourself that is whole and unscarred by life
Yeah.
and is able to think and make sensible decisions,
Yeah.
that's the portion of you you're going to grow back from.
Yeah. It's like making sourdough, isn't it? Is that, is that kind of,
I haven't made sourdough before. What's that like?
yeah, it's great. Yeah. But you have a starter, which is that, like you say, that's that kind of little piece that you then, so it continues.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it sounds like you've been on an incredible journey. I think if you were to kind of look back, what would you see as the standout from a obviously this podcast is about kind of e-commerce
Yeah.
and those types of things. From a what would you say is the standout kind of growth moment, if you like, in your kind of like 20-year history? Where was the bit that you kind of thought, I've got this right?
Hmm. Have I got it right?
Yeah.
I still I still wonder sometimes if I've got it right. The thing is that I look at life in block forms. So we've got blocks that are joined together, blocks of experiences come to an end, and then another block begins and it's a new experience and another block. And all of those blocks have this ability to put you together and to create a long story for you.
You
So
see them
I would,
like chapters, if you like.
yeah, that's a good one. Like chapters. If
Yeah.
something comes to an end, you're right. That's a perfect analogy. They're like chapters. And if you don't look at life that way, then you run the risk of saying that your whole life has been painful or your
Yeah.
whole life has just been one trial after the other. When I speak to business owners, I and they start to say how hard it is and maybe they're doing the wrong thing, I say to them, it's only because you're not looking at it in chapters, is what I'm going to start saying. You're looking at it as one long continuous thread, and really it's not. So if I were to think of, I think a pivotal moment for me was when I rewrote my story. So I came across Success Magazine. I used to read Success Magazine when I lived in the US, and I craved it so much when I came back because I was so steeped in business while I was there, and I was missing that. Many of my friends are not entrepreneurs. Whereas in the United States, everybody is an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Either the person,
must be, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I was reading an article in Success Magazine, and the author had introduced two women. The first one went to an Ivy League university, sailed right through, landed a top role on her first day, got headhunted by another company, moved halfway across the country to start a new business, and also had a book that was due to be out. The second one went to university, just about scrapes through scrapes out of university. Luckily for her, ran into her father's friend on the day she graduated, and he offered her a job as a clerk in his firm. And she lost that job a few years later or a year later. Her friend helped her find another role somewhere else. She worked there for a year, was made redundant, was now homeless, and had to go live with her auntie. She was trying her hand at running the business, and she hoped to write a book one day. And the author said, which of the stories do you prefer? And it's the first one. And I'm sure you've guessed that the stories of the same person, but they're just told differently. The author called the first story the rockstar version, and the second story the sub version because it made you cry.
Yeah.
And I realized, yeah, I realized that I had only been telling myself and telling other people the sub version of my story.
Yeah.
I'd only seen myself as this woman who had everything going well for her and she lost it all. And now she was homeless. And now she came back to England empty handed. And now she was having to start from scratch. That was the story I was telling myself because that's
Yeah.
how I read it. And when people asked me, I avoided networking because I didn't want anyone telling me, how did you get your business started? But when I read that article that night, I grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and I rewrote my story in its rockstar version
Yeah.
and read it when I was done. And I thought,
It's from a different perspective, isn't it?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
no, it's very good. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's true. A different perspective. And I saw myself differently. and realized that this was actually a powerful story. It wasn't a story of loss and suffering and failure. It was a story of resilience.
Yeah.
So I began to pick up that piece of paper every time I got discouraged, and I'd read it and I'll feel encouraged again. And without meaning to, I memorized it.
Yeah.
And then one day I ran into this journalist, and she said to me, "So how did you get started in your business?" And without warning, my rockstar story comes out of my mouth. And she goes, "I'm going to call my editor. This is a good story and we're going to run it." And they did. And I realized that other people wanted to hear my story,
Yeah.
but it's not because it was particularly unique. It was just because most people don't talk about failure, and they don't talk about loss, and they don't talk about the hard part of business, right? Everyone just wants to come across as being, "Oh, how's business? Oh, it's fine. It's growing great. I'm happy." We're not happy.
Yeah. No, I think it's I mean, it's a mindset thing to a certain extent, isn't it? And I think I think that's kind of rewriting the same story, but from a different perspective
That's it.
actually allows you yourself to see it differently.
Absolutely.
No, it's really, really interesting. So going back to, we were talking about e-commerce and talking about kind of growth and those sorts of things. What I mean, you built this website, but how did you go about promoting the website? I mean, I know I was looking at your website earlier, and it's a beautiful looking website. Obviously, it's the imagery that are in the website
Yeah.
that's so beautiful.
Um,
But how did you go about acquiring those customers or getting people to the website?
Okay, so that website, by the way, I didn't build it. There's a company called Seven Little Steps that did, and they did an amazing job with it. But they when I after I started, after I then launched the business, I created the website myself. I went to now the EU, we're not there anymore, and I went sourcing furniture, and because in the UK, I tried to approach manufacturers and companies that sold baby products, because I'd researched and saw that there was nothing like what we sold in the US. And they all either wanted me to have a physical location, or they wanted me to have lots of money to buy stock. And I had neither. Because back then in 2008, e-commerce was very much a dirty word in Britain. It was associated with Amazon that sold secondhand books, or eBay that sold secondhand things. And many companies did not want to be associated with it. They didn't they didn't have websites, and they were not interested. Or if they did have websites, it was not an e-commerce website. So I had the website. I then headed to the EU and sourced beautiful furniture and convinced them to let me sell their products. They're all different companies. Then I curated this absolutely stunning collection of baby and children's furniture and linens and everything. Then I ran into this woman who told me, "You don't just build a website, you need SEO." I'm like, "What's that?" And she goes, "Search engine optimization." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I can introduce you to someone." Great. She introduces me to a lovely guy called Brad. I've got Brad's surname. But she introduced me to Brad, and Brad quoted his fee, which was way more than I could afford. But we reached a deal. And he said, "I'll teach you how to do it. You pay me £100 per hour." Done. That was how I learned about SEO. So in the early days, I did my own SEO. I learned about meta titles. Back then, meta keywords used to be a thing. Now it doesn't exist anymore. So I learned about meta titles, meta description, outbound and inbound linking, um, everything to do with e-commerce, keywords and all of that. And back then we used to do keyword stuffing, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Remember where you'd and I remember one trick I learned was to stuff the keyword and make the keywords the color of the website page so it couldn't be seen. I'm taking you back.
Yeah, you are taking me back. Memory lane.
Mm. Yeah, so that was what happened. So I did, and he taught me how to do SEO, and I did the SEO, and that really did help us rank. And as time went on, I then changed the model of the business because I wanted some cohesiveness, and having products from multiple suppliers meant that we didn't really have a brand identity. We just kind of looked like this beautiful website that sold beautiful things, but we didn't have an identity. But what clinched it for me was when one day I started to receive emails from, I think, about 4 or 5 of my suppliers, and they all said exactly the same thing, which was, can you please take our products down from your website? We can't do business with you anymore. And no one gave me a reason. But luckily, one of them had accidentally looped me into an email chain, and it was a competitor that had gone to all of my suppliers and said, whatever Toks is doing in sales, I can do a whole lot better. However, I must be the only person, I must have exclusivity of your brand. And it was the height of the recession. People were desperate, and she came with sweet words, and they were like, yep, okay, that's it. And that evening, I remember coming out of my house. The boys were home. My husband had come back from work, and I just said, "I'm going for a run." I needed to run to get rid of the nervous energy. I needed to run because I didn't know what else to do, and I needed to run because I needed to cry. And so I'm running and I'm crying and I'm talking to God and I'm saying, I need an answer, because if I don't have products to sell, then I don't have a business anymore. Now, where we lived at the time, there was an M&S up the hill, kind of about maybe a mile or so down. And I said, I'm just going to keep running till I get to M&S. And I said, God, I need an answer before I get to M&S. And as I got to M&S and I was doing a U-turn to come back, i.e., I'm giving up, I didn't get an answer, the answer came. And that was, design your own furniture, design your own linens, and no one can tell you where to sell it or how to sell it or what to sell it for.
What you like, yeah.
Absolutely. And so that began the process of building our own brand, which was launched in the actual in-house brand was launched in 2021.
2021. Okay, so it's kind of like midway through the sort of pandemic, I guess.
Right, exactly. But by then we had already we had been on the King's Road for, I think, about 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years at that point. And we went the other way around, because most people go bricks and mortar to online. We were online and we went bricks and mortar because our products are expensive and they're beautiful, and there's only so much clothing. They need to be seen, they need to be felt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we do.
So that's 2021. Here we are in 2025. What in the last, since you've launched your own kind of furniture and whatnot, what's been this kind of the biggest growth moment for you?
Ooh, the biggest growth moment, I think it was at the point of launch, and just seeing that I actually created something that was once resident only in my mind and visible only to me. That was really powerful. And then people coming in and seeing the products and loving it, that just affirmed me. Because following my past experience, I had a bit of a traumatic relationship with entrepreneurship, because I was so scared that it was going to happen again. I was going to lose everything again. And
Sure, you're cautious. Yeah.
I was very cautious. Yeah, I was very cautious. At one point, I had a mentor that really helped as well. And I approached House of Fraser and got a concession opened in House of Fraser, but it was an online concession. And that was a really good experience. They had already warned me and said, we're known for beauty and clothing. We don't know that that's going to do well or not. It didn't do too well, but that was okay, because as the concession agreement was coming to an end, we opened our location on King's Road. So opening the store was a major moment for us.
Yeah.
Surviving the pandemic was huge.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, do you remember that? I share a lot on LinkedIn, my business journey. I'm really passionate about telling authentic stories of entrepreneurship. And I shared recently about how small wins need to be celebrated. A small win I remember so well was when we got our bags. Our boutique shopping bags with our logo on it, that was huge.
Yeah.
When we got our trademark, that was huge.
And I see you've just done it. Have you just done the deal with Harrods? Have you?
Yeah. We're opening a concession in Harrods next month on the
That's
8th.
amazing. That's really good. Yeah, you must be. I mean, that's a big moment, isn't it?
That's
Harrods?
huge.
Yeah.
That is absolutely huge. I think that's got to be our biggest one. And the fact that we were approached by Harrods and we didn't go begging.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Much better to be approached than, like you say, than, I was going to ask you about how that came about, but the fact that they've approached you, that's really good.
Really, really good.
That's a a big endorsement for the brand, I'd say.
It is. It absolutely is. And there was no doubt in their minds about the quality of our products. To show you just how unbelievable the whole thing was when I saw the message, I thought the buyer's account had been hacked.
Really?
And I ignored it. I was like, oh, they've had her, because had her name at Harrods.com, nah, her account has been hacked.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
2 days later, another message. I really need to speak to someone. I'm like, this might be real. And then even then, I still was suspicious. Like, nah, can't be.
Yeah. I mean, that's so. How do you think that how have they identified you, and your and the brand? How have they identified the brand and come after you? Because you clearly must be doing a good job of your marketing and getting your name out there.
Well, I mean, we rank high for some keywords, like obviously luxury nursery and luxury baby furniture and so on. And then we're also in Chelsea, which helps.
Yeah.
So it would be the SEO, I think, is one way, because I did ask, how did you find us? And she said, I've been going online researching, and you're the only company I found that is worthy of being in Harrods, that your products are the standard that our customers expect.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's great news. So, I mean, you've been around in e-commerce for some time, a lot more so than maybe a lot of the people that I talk to on a daily basis. But
Mhm.
e-com also moves pretty fast. So, what's your, I don't know, in the last sort of maybe post-pandemic, what's the biggest learning for you?
Oh, it feels as if the biggest learning is don't even trust anything Google tells you, because they're always changing things around.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I'm not as involved as I was with e-commerce,
Yeah,
as the e-commerce side of the business, like I used to be, but I'm intrigued by AI
yeah.
and the role that it plays.
Yeah. I was
So
going to
that
ask you, what do you think's going to happen? Where do you think that's going to go from your perspective with your brand?
Mhm.
How do you think AI could come into play?
I think that I was born for this season. I'm so happy that I'm in this era where AI is being used, because I'm a heavy user of it. And I think for those of us who are, we're already winners. I see nothing but success for the company,
Yeah.
and being supported by AI as well. It's just I said to my son the other day, I said, what if we wake up and find that this was all a dream? But absolutely, it's useful. My main tool I use is ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and of course now there are many other platforms like Canva that have AI built into it. So now the other day we were sending emails out to clients. We use Zoho, the Zoho suite for
Yeah.
our CRM and our emails and everything. And we're sending out an email from the CRM, and had put the email in the body, and the title automatically appeared. Like, we didn't put a title in there, but it populated it itself. So it's saving time, uh, making your business more dynamic than ever.
Yeah.
That's what AI is doing, and that's what it's going to do for us. We offer interior design as a service. We design nursery rooms, playrooms, and children's rooms. And although I haven't yet found an ideal AI tool that can help with that, I'm even using ChatGPT to help. So it's nothing but good stuff.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, isn't it? And the pace, I think the pace at which it's evolved. You go back to when you first started out and talking about SEO and those things. I think we felt then that things were moving fast, but now with AI, it's moving even quicker.
Speed of sound.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Me too.
So looking at the on the e-commerce side of things over the years, no matter now or whatever, what's been the sort of like, you've got your acquisition, you've got your conversion, and you've got your kind of retention. You talk about Zoho and kind of your emails and those sorts of things. What's been the biggest challenge around that? Is that acquiring customers, converting them, or retaining? Where do you see the biggest challenge?
I think it's acquiring the right customers.
Yeah, sure.
So we have people who visit, we have, good traffic, people come to our website, but not a bulk, large amount of them are just, loving our products and looking at it, but not actually buying. So that's been a real struggle, is finding, and what surprises me about it is that I believe that the more niche your market is, the easier it is for you to market it. The more niche your company is, the easier it will be to market it, because
Yeah.
your audience is already very well defined.
Yeah.
So in our case, it's affluent families, affluent expectant moms.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be hard to target, but still, I find that's the one area that I still find a challenge.
Yeah, but I guess if you're like the point you're probably kind of you're half making, if you like, is if you're bringing in the right customers, you're going to get the right level of conversions, and you're
Right.
going to retain more of those.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, cool. What if you had one piece of advice to someone, you've got a lot of experience, 20 years, you've been kind of doing this. If you had um one piece of advice for someone starting out now, what would that be?
Practice authenticity.
Hmm.
The reason why that's essential is in this day of AI and chat GPT, it's very easy for us to all start to sound alike.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
people are, content and blog posts and everything is being generated on with AI. And there is a way in which it sounds, there's a way that it writes. And yes, we can train it to use certain words and have our tone of voice and so on. But I feel that I believe that a time is coming when people will crave real human connection.
Yeah,
At the moment, we're all excited about AI. We're all, using it and we're running. We're talking about it and we're laughing about it and so on. But I think it will get exhausting after a while, because we were created to connect with each other.
yeah.
And one way in which you can do so, connecting with your audience, is by being yourself, being
Being
authentic,
real. Yeah,
being real. That's it. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'd agree with that, and I think we might see a trend, if we're not seeing it now, where there's that kind of generic vanilla, the same stuff being churned out by people all the time, but then
Yeah.
then there's nothing then, and then the I don't know, the effort is that kind of, I think, or authenticity, creativity, those types of things.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest challenge for you in 2025? Do you think?
Um, hmm. That's such a good question. Biggest challenge in 2025, I think it's more of a personal one than a business one,
Sure.
which is delegating,
Yeah.
especially with AI, because now it feels like I'm superwoman. I can do it all.
Yeah,
So,
even more so. Yeah, yeah, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely my biggest challenge. And I'm trying really hard to not be that micromanager.
Yeah.
At times, if I maybe, because we have our products are high end and luxury, but we have ultra. And so with the ultra, we might have like a client call in and ask about it, and the ladies at the shop are like, "It's called Toks. This person wants this, or this is this person," and I tell them what to do, and 2 minutes later, I'm like, they haven't done it. I just do it myself. I just do it myself. Yeah. So I do need to learn to let go.
Yeah.
And especially with us expanding into Harrods, it's like trying to carry so many balls on my hand. I shouldn't be doing. I need drop some. So I've got to learn to let go and just, trust that my staff are equipped, and they are wonderful people.
Do you think that that's common amongst founders?
I think so.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
kind of like a control thing, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like founders. You're right. Not necessarily entrepreneurs, but founders. Because when you start something from scratch, that's your bit. That's your baby.
It's what both says. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think yeah, I mean there's a lot to be said about delegation, particularly around scaling as well, because I can't do all of it in my business. You can't do all of it in your business. But you also want that ethos to filter down into the and the mindset and stuff.
Right. Exactly. That's the thing. So we've got to Well, I've got you now, Kevin. When I have any control issues, I'm going to call you.
I'll be calling you. Excellent. It's been really good to chat. I think I've really enjoyed it, and I think that there's a lot of things there that will come out, and I think that those watching will see, some of what you've been through and take a bit of inspiration. I think that's really, I mean, it's really really cool.
Oh, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our chat. You've brightened my day. I had a crazy busy day this morning, and now I just feel like, yes, Kevin Taylor has uplifted me. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.